a.k.a. the Terrible Australian, the co-host, of course, of Super Podcast, and as well as a contributor to supermarcy.com. Welcome to the first edition of a series of video reviews that I'm doing in honour of the Melbourne International Film Festival, in which I'll be talking about all the films that I've seen so far at the festival. You're probably wondering why I'm actually doing video reviews instead of written reviews as I usually do for supermarcy.com. I decided that since I'm really busy with the festival, seeing about 17 films, and as well as starting a new job, and as well as other things in my life that I'm busy with, I wouldn't have had the time to actually sit down and write reviews for all the films that I've seen so far. So I decided for a bit of a change of pace and for something different, I'll do video reviews instead. For this first edition of my video reviews, I'll be talking about the first film I saw at the festival, which was the sci-fi comedy Robot and Frank. The film tells the story of an aging, elderly, retired cat burglar by the name of Frank, played by Frank Langella, who lives sort of an isolated existence out in his small little house out in the woods, far away from his two kids, played by James Marsden and Liv Tyler. And then one day his son buys Frank a robot, which he believes would help Frank around the house with the cleaning and the food, and also to help make sure that Frank stays healthy. At first Frank doesn't want anything to do with the robot, he doesn't want him around, but his son insists that the robot stays, and just to give it a go and see what happens. So Frank reluctantly lets the robot stay, and for a while there Frank doesn't like the robot, doesn't want him around, and until one day, while Frank goes into this shop that he always likes to steal things from, he's caught out by the shop owner, but luckily Frank was able to put back this little item that he was trying to steal back on the shelf, so he doesn't get caught, so he doesn't get into trouble. But then, as he's walking home with Robot, he discovers that Robot, after when he put the item back on the shelf, that Robot actually retook what Frank was trying to steal. And then Frank realizes that Robot, even though Robot knows that stealing is wrong, but there's no program within his system that tells him not to steal. So Frank decides that this little flaw in Robot's design, he decides to go back in the cat burglar business. So he and Robot sort of start planning a couple of little robberies, and then from there they start robbing a couple of places around town. I'm going to stop there because there's a lot more to the plot than that, but I think it's one of those films that you don't really want to know too much about, because basically the entire plot, like if you've seen the trailer to the film, the basic plot is basically like shown in the trailer, but there are other aspects of the film that the trailer doesn't show, which is actually pretty surprising. And then there are elements of the film, like even though it's a sci-fi comedy, it also has a lot of dramatic elements to the story. So in a way, it's more of a sci-fi comedy drama, and the dramatic elements, which I didn't expect to be in this film, actually add a lot more weight to the story. And I wish I could explain why that is, but I figured but I won't say what they are because that would be too much of a spoiler, because like I said, I didn't expect this to happen in the movie. Even though you'll find out why that is at the very beginning of the film, but I figured I won't say what it is. And so this dramatic element within the story actually surprisingly adds a lot more weight to the film, and it makes it gives the film a lot more depth than I would initially thought it would have. But that's not to say it's a full-on drama. It is a very enjoyable film. It's absolutely hilarious. I was the audience I saw it with were pretty much were laughing in hysterics at a lot of moments throughout the film, and it is really funny, and it really is a very entertaining film. I had a great time watching this film. I can say that I really love this film. The performances are all great. Frank Langella gives another terrific performance, and it's great to see him back in a lead role again since Frost Nixon. And it's definitely a kind of performance that could get him like award consideration. He's that great. And also the supporting cast are all terrific. James Marsden's really good as well as his son, and Liv Tyler is also really good as Frank's daughter. And also Susan Sarandon also gives a really nice performance as the librarian that Frank has a crush on and tries to develop a relationship with during the course of the film. But I think the crutch of the film and what makes this film great is the relationship between Frank and the robot. And that is the crutch of the story, and that to me is what makes the film great, because during the course of the film, Frank of course doesn't like robot, and then Frank slowly during the course of the film starts to like robot, and he develops a really compelling and engaging relationship with him. In a way, it's kind of like it's a bromance pretty much, or robot bromance, if you will. But their relationship is the key element to the film and what makes it such a great film. And like I said, there are aspects of the film I'd like to talk about, but I think it's best not to say too much about them, because there are just some elements that I was caught off guard by. And I have to admit, even though I was actually surprisingly moved by this film as well. Which I didn't expect at all. It's a terrific film. I absolutely loved it. And also it has a little bit of social commentary as well, because Susan Sarandon's character, who's a librarian, works at a library that's getting a total makeover, where they're very much taking out all the books at the library, and instead of just bringing computers that actually have electronic books on them. And I thought that was a really interesting sort of jab at today's technology, in which a lot of people now read books on their iPads and all that. I thought that was really an interesting thing. The film doesn't go further with that, but I just thought that was an interesting element that the film adds. I have to say, but Robot and Frank is definitely a must-see film. I really love this film. It had truly great performances, and it's worth seeing just for both Frank Langella's performance and as well as Peter Sarsgaard as the voice of Robot. He's really great in the film, and he's also got great comic timing as well. But Robot and Frank, overall thoughts, it's a really great film. I really enjoyed it. If I had to give it a rating, out of 5 stars, I'd give it a solid 4.5. I really enjoyed it that much. And I definitely keep a lookout for it when it hits theaters, and hopefully you'll all enjoy it as well. I hope everybody enjoyed this first edition of my MIFF video reviews. Keep a lookout for my second edition, which will be online very soon, in which I'll be talking about the documentary Room 237, which is a film that analyzes Stanley Kubrick's horror masterpiece, The Shining, and as well as the Sundance favorite, The Session, starring John Hawkes and Helen Hunt. So keep a lookout for that, and I'll see you all very soon. Bye.